I, 28F, never thought I'd be sharing something like this on Reddit, but recent events have left me questioning everything I thought I knew about family loyalty. The situation with my sister Natalie, 32F, has torn our family apart, and I need some outside perspective on whether I'm handling this right. Let me start from the beginning. Growing up, Natalie was everything I aspired to be. She was the golden child in our family, brilliant, ambitious, and determined. While I was still trying to figure out what to do with my life, she had her entire future mapped out. She graduated top of her class in law school and landed a prestigious position at one of the biggest law firms in our city. By 30, she was already making partner, something almost unheard of in her field. Our parents, especially our father, couldn't have been prouder. Dad always said Natalie got her drive from him. He'd worked his way up from nothing to own a successful small business. Mom was more laid back, always telling us that happiness was more important than success, but even she couldn't help bragging about Natalie's achievements to anyone who would listen. 5 years ago, Natalie married Alan, 34M, a high school history teacher she met at a mutual friend's barbecue. Alan was different from the high-powered lawyers and executives Natalie usually dated. He was down-to-earth, kind, and genuinely cared about making a difference in his students' lives. Their wedding was extravagant. Natalie spent nearly $100,000 of her own money on it, saying she'd earned the right to have her dream wedding. Despite their different careers and income levels, Natalie made about 5 times what Alan did. They seemed to complement each other perfectly. Alan kept Natalie grounded, while she pushed him to dream bigger. I met Henry, 30M, 3 years ago through a mutual friend at a charity event. He was working in banking but wasn't very high up the ladder at that time. What attracted me to him was how different he seemed from the typical finance brothers. He was charming, attentive, and seemed genuinely interested in my work as a graphic designer. Natalie was actually the one who encouraged me to date him, saying he reminded her of Alan in many ways, ambitious but kind-hearted. Henry and I dated for 2 years before getting married last year. Our wedding was much smaller than Natalie's. We had about 50 guests compared to her 300. Natalie actually made several comments about how we should have done something bigger, offering to help pay for a more lavish ceremony, but we wanted something intimate. Looking back, I wonder if that was the first sign of how different our values were. The first 6 months of our marriage were perfect, or at least I thought they were. Henry got a new job at a prestigious investment bank, thanks partly to Natalie's connections and mentoring. They started spending a lot of time together, allegedly working on a joint surprise for me and Alan, a combined anniversary party, since our weddings were just a month apart. I never suspected anything. Why would I? She was my sister, my role model, the person I trusted most in the world after our parents. Things started changing subtly after that. Natalie began making more comments about Alan's career choices, suggesting he should consider administrative positions that paid better. She started attending more work events with Henry, saying it was important for his career growth. I noticed she was dressing differently too, more expensive designer clothes, more revealing styles. But I brushed it all off as Natalie just being her usual ambitious self, trying to help my husband succeed like she had. The truth came out 3 months ago during our regular Sunday family dinner. These dinners were a tradition in our family. Everyone gathered at our parents' house, including our grandparents who lived nearby. Natalie had been acting strange all evening, barely touching Mom's lasagna, her favorite, and constantly checking her phone. When Alan gently asked if everything was okay, she suddenly stood up and dropped the bomb that would shatter our family forever. She announced that she and Henry had fallen in love. Just like that, in front of everyone, including our 80-year-old grandparents who had just celebrated their 60th wedding anniversary the month before. Henry, sitting next to me, didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. He just stared at his plate while Natalie went on about how they hadn't planned this, but their connection was undeniable and they wanted to be together. The worst part wasn't just the affair, it was how Natalie justified it. She said she was tired of pretending to be satisfied with a simple life. She talked about how Alan's teacher's salary meant they could never have the lifestyle she deserved, while Henry understood her ambitions better. She even had the audacity to tell me I should be grateful she had discovered this now before we had children. The aftermath was chaos. Alan left immediately, his hands shaking so badly he could barely get his car keys out. Our father, who had always been Natalie's biggest supporter, asked her if she had lost her mind. Mom started crying, while our grandparents just sat there in shocked silence. I couldn't even speak. It felt like someone had ripped my heart out and was making me watch as they tore it to pieces. When I finally found my voice, I asked how long this had been going on. Henry admitted they'd been seeing each other for 4 months, but something in the way Natalie quickly glanced at him made me suspect this wasn't the whole truth. She kept talking about how true love shouldn't be denied and that she and Henry were meant to be together. The weeks that followed were a blur of divorce proceedings, family drama, and countless tears. Alan's family, who had always treated Natalie like their own daughter, were devastated. They had always praised her for being so successful yet down to earth, and this betrayal hit them hard. Alan filed for divorce within a week, wanting nothing to do with her anymore. I filed for divorce too, though Henry tried to convince me that I was overreacting and that these things happen in life. Natalie's attitude through all of this has been unbelievable. She shows no remorse, constantly posting on social media about following your heart and living your truth. She even told our mother that she was tired of settling for less and that Henry was the only person who truly understood her ambitions and drive. She seems to think that her success and money give her the right to do whatever she wants, regardless of who gets hurt in the process. Now I'm questioning whether I'm being too harsh by completely cutting her out of my life. Our parents are devastated, constantly trying to mediate between us. But how can I forgive someone who not only betrayed me but showed zero remorse for destroying 2 marriages? How can I ever trust her again when she could do this to her own sister? Am I wrong for wanting nothing to do with my sister anymore? Update 1. It's been 2 weeks since my original post, and first, I want to thank everyone for their supportive comments and messages. The overwhelming response has helped me feel less alone in this nightmare. I have some new developments to share that make this situation even more twisted than before. Last week, my cousin Rachel, who works at the same law firm as Natalie, came to me with information that turned my world upside down again. She had been struggling with whether to tell me this for days, but finally decided I deserved to know the truth. According to Rachel, Natalie and Henry's affair didn't start 4 months ago as they claimed. They had been seeing each other since before my wedding. Rachel had accidentally discovered their relationship about 8 months ago when she saw them having an intimate lunch at a restaurant far from their offices. At first, she convinced herself she was misreading the situation. But as she started paying more attention, she noticed how often Henry visited the firm to meet Natalie. Their supposed career mentoring sessions often ran late into the evening, and they would leave together in Natalie's car. The depth of their deception is staggering. While Natalie was helping me pick out my wedding dress, she was sleeping with my fiancé. She stood beside me as my maid of honor, gave a beautiful speech about sisterly love and finding true happiness, all while knowing she was betraying me in the worst possible way. Henry moved seamlessly between playing the devoted fiancé and meeting my sister behind my back. Rachel showed me security logs from the firm's parking garage showing Henry's car often parked there late at night, long after their supposed mentoring sessions should have ended. She also had screenshots of their interactions in the office, nothing explicit, but their body language in the photos tells a clear story of 2 people involved in more than a professional relationship. When I confronted Natalie with this evidence, her reaction was shocking. Instead of showing remorse or even trying to deny it, she exploded with anger, not at herself for being caught in more lies, but at Rachel for betraying her confidence and interfering in her personal life. She sent me a long email that made me physically ill when I read it. In the email, she tried to paint herself as some tragic heroine, claiming she and Henry had tried to fight their feelings but were powerless against their connection. She wrote that she actually did me a favor by preventing me from spending my life with someone who wasn't truly in love with me. She even suggested that I should be grateful to her for being brave enough to follow her heart so that I could find my real soulmate someday. The most infuriating part was how she tried to justify helping Henry prepare for his banking job interviews while they were having an affair. She claimed she was still trying to be a good sister by helping my then-fiancé advance his career. The mental gymnastics required to paint her actions as somehow beneficial to me is mind-boggling. I printed out copies of her email and sent them to our entire extended family, including the relatives who had been defending her actions and pushing for reconciliation. Her attempt to portray herself as some kind of heroic figure finally showed everyone her true nature. Even our Aunt Sarah, who had initially urged us to forgive Natalie because family is everything, called me in tears after reading the email, apologizing for ever suggesting I should try to understand Natalie's perspective. 2 days ago, Alan reached out to me after receiving his copy of the email. We met for coffee, and for the first time since this nightmare began, I felt truly understood. He shared things about his marriage to Natalie that put everything in a new light. Over the past year, she had become increasingly critical of his career choices, constantly comparing his teacher's salary to what her lawyer friends' husbands earned. She would make subtle digs about how they couldn't afford certain luxuries, even though Alan had never cared about material things. He also revealed that Natalie had started pushing him to take an administrative position at his school, saying he was wasting his potential as a teacher. When he explained that he loved teaching and didn't want to give up classroom time for a higher salary, she accused him of lacking ambition. It became clear that her affair with Henry wasn't just about true love, it was about money, status, and her own ego. Meanwhile, Henry and Natalie have been flaunting their relationship more openly than ever. They bought a new luxury car together, mostly with her money, according to Rachel, and have been posting constant updates about their new chapter together. Natalie even had the audacity to invite several family members to their housewarming party at their new luxury apartment. Unsurprisingly, no one attended. Our parents are completely crushed by all of this. Mom can barely look at old family photos anymore. She took down all the pictures of Natalie from the living room wall. Dad, who was always so proud of Natalie's career success, now says he wishes he hadn't pushed her so hard to be successful if this was the result. They finally stopped trying to mediate between us, accepting that some betrayals run too deep to ever heal. I'm focusing on moving forward with my life. The divorce proceedings are almost complete, and I'm looking for job opportunities in different cities. I need a fresh start somewhere far from all these painful memories. Alan has been surprisingly supportive through all of this. We formed an unexpected friendship based on our shared experience of betrayal. We occasionally meet for coffee to check on each other's healing process, and it helps to talk to someone who truly understands the depth of Natalie's betrayal. Right now, I'm taking things one day at a time. Some days are harder than others, but at least I now have absolute clarity about who my sister really is. The rose-colored glasses are off, and I can see her for what she truly is, a selfish, manipulative person who values money and status above family loyalty and basic human decency. Update 2. It's been about a year since my original post, and I have some shocking developments to share. Yesterday, Natalie showed up at our parents' house, completely hysterical and barely recognizable as the polished, confident woman she used to be. Her perfect new life with Henry has imploded spectacularly. Through her tears, Natalie revealed that Henry has disappeared with most of her money. Over the past few months, he had gradually convinced her to invest in various business opportunities that he claimed would double or triple their money. He talked about startup companies and overseas investments, using his banking background to make everything sound legitimate. Natalie, who despite being a successful lawyer knew little about investment banking, trusted him completely. She transferred large sums into their joint accounts, liquidated some of her investment portfolios, and even took out a second mortgage on their luxury apartment to fund these ventures. Last week, she discovered that Henry had emptied all their shared accounts. Over $800,000 of her savings had vanished, transferred through a complex web of offshore accounts that she's having trouble tracing even with her legal knowledge. Henry left her a brief note, saying he had found his true soulmate, a 22-year-old yoga instructor named Summer, and they were starting a new life together in a country with no extradition treaty. The irony of him using the same true love excuse that Natalie had used to justify their affair wasn't lost on any of us. But that's not even the worst part. Natalie discovered that Henry had stopped paying his share of their apartment's rent months ago, letting her cover everything while secretly stockpiling money for his escape. She's now facing possible eviction because she can't afford the $6,000 monthly rent on her own, especially after losing so much of her savings. Her credit cards are maxed out from trying to maintain their lavish lifestyle, and she's drowning in debt. She came to our parents begging for help, both financially and emotionally. She kept saying she had learned her lesson and now understood the pain she had caused everyone. Our parents called me, thinking maybe this was an opportunity for reconciliation. When I arrived, Natalie tried to hug me, tears streaming down her face, saying she was sorry for everything and that she never should have trusted Henry. The change in her appearance was shocking. Her designer clothes were wrinkled and stained, her expensive highlights had grown out showing gray roots, and she'd lost so much weight that her face looked gaunt. Her hands shook as she showed us the note Henry had left, along with bank statements showing the massive withdrawals he had made. But I felt no sympathy for her. Instead, I reminded her of everything she had done. How she had slept with my husband before our wedding while helping me choose my bridal dress. How she had stood next to me as my maid of honor, knowing what she was doing. How she had destroyed not just my marriage, but also her marriage to Alan, who had loved her unconditionally despite their income difference. I reminded her of the email she sent me, where she claimed she was doing me a favor by taking Henry away. I asked her if she still felt she had done the right thing by following her heart. She broke down completely at this point, admitting that she had been foolish and arrogant. Natalie revealed that Henry had been manipulating her all along, gradually isolating her from her law firm colleagues and friends. He had convinced her to make increasingly risky financial decisions, always saying that she needed to prove she trusted him if she really loved him. Now, her position at the law firm is precarious because she had been bringing Henry to client meetings, and several clients had invested in his fake business ventures on her recommendation. Our parents were torn about how to handle the situation. Mom's maternal instincts made her want to help, but Dad remained firm. He reminded Natalie that she had thrown away a loving husband and destroyed her sister's marriage for a man who had now proven to be a con artist. He told her that sometimes the best lessons in life come at the highest cost. I told Natalie that karma had finally caught up with her. She had chosen money and status over family loyalty and genuine love, and now she had lost everything. Her tears seemed more about losing her money and comfortable lifestyle than genuine regret for her actions. When she begged me to help her at least find a temporary place to stay, I refused. I told her she should have thought about consequences before destroying our family. Even some relatives who had defended her last year now agree that she needs to face the consequences of her choices. The sister I loved and looked up to would never have betrayed her family the way she did. This tearful, broken woman asking for help was simply facing the results of her own actions. Update 3. It's been 3 months since Natalie came begging for help, and a lot has changed, though our position remains firm. I wanted to share what's been happening because many people messaged me asking for updates. Natalie's life has completely unraveled. She had to sell her luxury car, designer handbags, and most of her jewelry just to afford a tiny one-bedroom apartment in a not-so-great part of town. Her law firm put her on probation after several clients complained about losing money in Henry's fake investment schemes. They're conducting an internal investigation to determine if she was knowingly involved in his scams or just another victim. Either way, her reputation is ruined, and she's at risk of losing her job. Some relatives, particularly our Aunt Sarah and Uncle Mike, have been suggesting that we should help her because she's still family. They argue that seeing her fall so far from her previous success is punishment enough. Last week, they even organized a small family intervention, trying to convince our parents and me to forgive Natalie and help her get back on her feet. But I disagree completely. The Natalie I knew, my sister who I loved and looked up to, died the day she chose to betray our family. That person is gone, replaced by someone who proved she would sacrifice anyone and anything for money and status. The fact that she only came back when she lost everything speaks volumes about her character. She's not sorry for what she did, she's sorry she got scammed. Through mutual friends, I heard that she tried to contact Alan recently. She sent him a long email apologizing and saying she regrets leaving him, calling it the biggest mistake of her life. Alan, who has moved to a different state and is now dating a kindergarten teacher, didn't even respond. He simply forwarded the email to his lawyer and blocked her email address. I've also learned that Natalie has been trying to track down Henry, hiring private investigators with what little money she has left. Apparently, he and Summer were last seen in Thailand, but the trail goes cold after that. The police said that since Natalie willingly transferred the money to their joint accounts, it's more of a civil matter than a criminal one. She's basically spent money she doesn't have trying to find someone who clearly planned his escape well. Our parents have accepted that our family will never be the same. Mom still sometimes cries when she comes across old photos or when someone mentions Natalie, but she stopped pushing for reconciliation. Dad has thrown himself into his business, working longer hours as if trying to forget he has a daughter who broke his heart. The latest development is that Natalie is apparently writing a book about her experience, calling it Finding Yourself After Losing Everything, a story of love, betrayal, and redemption. She even had the audacity to ask if I would contribute my perspective to show the full picture of family dynamics. Typical Natalie, trying to profit from her own misdeeds and turn her story of betrayal into a redemption narrative. I've started seeing someone new recently, taking things very slowly and being much more cautious this time. He knows my whole story and understands why I have trust issues. Being betrayed by the two people I trusted most, my sister and my husband, has changed how I approach relationships, but I'm working on not letting their actions define my future. Several people have asked if I'll ever forgive Natalie. My answer remains no. Some bridges, once burned, should stay burned. She made her choices, prioritizing money and status over family and loyalty. Now she has to live with the consequences of those choices. As for me, I'm focusing on building a life without the sister who betrayed me, and I'm finally at peace with that decision.